The rankings are out. This is our second edition of the college football playoff rankings. These are always interesting to get, and in particular, this version of the rankings because they were vastly different in the way that they analyzed some of the same teams now week to week. So here we are. We've got our second edition, and this is what they gave us. Here's the top 25 according to the College Football Playoff Committee. Tulane, they get in there. Army is in there. Mizzou at 23, which, by the way, Eli Drinkowitz, you're not playing playoff games, brother. Sorry. I'm just sorry. Everyone thinks I'm just trying to take off on Missouri. It's just not the case, but they are not in a position to go to the college football playoff as an at-large team, and that ranking suggests it at number 23. You've got Colorado in there at 17, Kansas State at 16. It's very interesting there from the 15th spot in because Texas A&M is sitting there. SMU, clearly the committee doesn't think all that highly about SMU. Boise poised at 13. They win, and they're going to be a group of 5 representative in there. Then Georgia at 12. And that's obviously interesting because they would be on the outside looking in, the way that the bracket is formulated. Ole Miss at 11, Bama 10, Miami at 9, Notre Dame 8, Tennessee 7, BYU 6, and then it's Indiana 5, Penn State 4, Texas 3, Ohio State 2, Oregon 1. So 4 Big Ten teams right inside the top 5 there, as Oregon, Ohio State, Penn State, Indiana, all in the top 5. Okay, let's get to just major takeaways now. Here's what we're thinking right now, right here at the Joel Klatt Show. I immediately saw a vast difference between last week and this week in the way that the committee is viewing and ranking Indiana and BYU. Now, that was a big source of contention on this program and others, by the way, last week in terms of the way that the committee was viewing or more so undervaluing Indiana and BYU. Now they jump way up. So each of them jump way up, each of them up 3 spots. And what I found so fascinating is that you can make a very strong argument that each of those teams jumped up 3 spots on the heels of probably the worst performance that they've had all year long. Indiana against Michigan in the second half did not look like Indiana from any other game. And BYU Utah, that was an incredible game that BYU was so fortunate to win. So fortunate to win. They get the penalty on the 4th down, then they're able to drive down. They get the field goal inside of 5 seconds. Utah felt like they had that game won. And so here's these 2 teams that play, I think, the worst game that they have played to date this season, and yet the playoff committee rewards them, moving them each up 3 spots. I just found that fascinating, and to me, it was a little bit of a human movement because I felt like that committee heard what people were saying, and they reacted to what the sentiment was around Indiana and BYU last week after the first edition of the playoff rankings. So now when I look at those 2 teams, you see, last week I thought to myself, I don't know if they can lose one game. You know, even if it's BYU in the conference title game at 12-1, after last week's rankings, I didn't love their position. Same with Indiana. Let's say that for sake of argument that they lose a game that they will be underdogs in on the road at Ohio State and they finish 11-1. After last week, I was like, I don't know. That's a bubble team. Now it looks like those teams are safe. So the committee is going to do one of 2 things here moving forward. Either they have adjusted and this will be the new norm, or we're going to see wild fluctuations every single week. If we see wild fluctuations every single week, then the point would be nobody is safe. Because you can go all the way down 9 spots like Georgia did after a loss to Ole Miss, or you can raise up 3 spots after your worst performance. So if they're going to be volatile, then nobody is safe. And you can't just say, well, we control our own destiny for an at-large spot, so on and so forth. Now, if they are just adjusting and they're trying to settle on a new normal, then what you would take from this iteration of these playoff rankings is that Indiana and BYU could probably lose a game and still go to the college football playoff. Yes, even BYU. Now, that would likely have to be in the Big 12 championship game because that would help their stakes. They would be a 12-1 team at that point. If that were the case, would they probably still go? I think that they would. And now with Indiana at 5, you certainly see a scenario where even if they lost a game on the road as an underdog to Ohio State, that they would probably still go. So Curt Cignetti's crew is now 10-0. Their best wins are against Washington and Michigan. Both of those games were at home. Their strength of schedule is still in the 100s. It's actually dead at 100, but they still have the second-ranked scoring offense. They've still been beating people by quite a margin until this week against Michigan. So they, to me, are a fascinating watch in these playoff rankings. And the way that they played and being given the benefit of the doubt by this committee, I thought was my biggest takeaway. Both of those. The two non-blue blood brands got elevated 3 spots each after their worst performances. I would just hang real quickly before my next point, because the team right above them in Penn State, they move up 2 spots. Now they're 4th. They're 8-1. They do not have much left on that schedule. I feel really good about Penn State going to the playoff, and where they sit now after 2 playoff rankings, I really feel good about them hosting a college football playoff game. We've speculated about that all the way back to the summer. And now, like, I'm feeling very confident about that. And boy, wouldn't you love to see a playoff game in Happy Valley? I would sure love to see that, because their home field advantage has obviously been so good for a long time. It's one of the best environments in college football, if not the best in some instances. And for them to host, that would be a huge deal, in particular if they had to welcome an SEC team into their stadium. So that would be something that's very interesting. Thank you for watching the Joel Klatt Show YouTube channel. And if you liked this clip, make sure to like it and subscribe to the channel, and you can stay up to date on all of my college football coverage.